Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Paul7931 as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the track on the screen on YouTube. This is from an act named ElephantGym and the song is titled Witches. So we're going to listen through this track from start to finish. I'm going to hear what we think. Let's go. What do we got? Original text from William Shakespeare. It's pretty wild already with the guitars, bass, and drums, man. Those cymbal hits, the tapped bass parts, the harmonics on the guitars. I mean, it's just so dreamy, isn't it? With the higher range lady vocals over top with a smooth sort of central soft feel on top of the really colourful guitar parts on the side there, the kind of interesting noisish elements there with the strained guitar takes there with the slow attacks and decays on them. The interesting tom fills, the unusual time signature. There's a lot to appreciate here, really. Lots of moving components. Not to mention the story. Wonderful resolution to the harmony there. That is one of the most smooth tempo transitions that I've heard in quite a while there. Just how neatly it went down there with a phenomenal amount of dynamic range as well. Those really sort of timid little quiet hits there, very intimate sounding, you know. It's not just even the intensity of the range dynamically of the instruments, the crazy technical riffs are playing with interesting sort of like jazzy interpretations. There's some prog rock elements. There's also these these builds, like wow, these kind of noisy, kind of like intense sounds and textures that are being introduced on the sides and not in the center. It's almost kind of disorienting, you know. Witches. So there are a lot of really talented people involved in this. I can tell immediately from what I've been looking at here that we got some really special, like the performance instrumentally was phenomenal. The vocals were fantastic. If that was from William Shakespeare, I like how it was integrated within this. After like listening through it, I have no idea what the song is about. We're going to check out the lyrics in a moment, kindly provided by Paul, and then we'll get into the conclusion. But yeah, the lyrics, hopefully you guys can see the lyrics for ElephantGym, which is, I'm a poor player that struts and frets his hour on the stage and then is heard no more. It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury signifying nothing. So we're saying that the person who is talking about the player is an idiot. Life's but a walking shadow, tomorrow, tomorrow, do not muse at me, most worthy friends. Which is nothing to those that know me. So we're saying a strange infirmity that is nothing to know that know me. So basically, is this Shakespeare sort of, if this is Shakespeare, is this talking about the fact that he sees these people on stage and that he's himself the idiot telling this tale? Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, life's but a walking shadow, that we're always in the shadows, constantly being sort of dragged forward by that, being angry like that, and that we're all kind of angry because we're in that shadow. Come love and health to all, give me some wine, fill, fall to all and all and all to all and all to all. I'm not sure. I'm going to talk about what I think this is about more in the conclusion. I just don't know if I've got it, but it's nonetheless very intriguing. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named ElephantGym titled Witches. Now, what do I think this track is about? After having a look through this piece and the lyrics, I would hesitate to really have a sort of like a concrete definition for it. I think it's Shakespeare talking about, again, people who perform on stage and people like kind of stressing about their ability to perform in it. And it's a tale told by an idiot. So I assume that maybe Shakespeare's talking about himself or anyone that likes to comment about other people and their fretting and stuff like that, as if not to judge the person on stage, to sort of like have less of less of an opinion on it, as it's maybe less relevant than they think it is. And eventually he's like talking about how like life's like a living shadow, day after day, we're constantly followed by a shadow, like an angry and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if it's simply just people are commenting on others, and maybe the witch and maybe the witches are involved with, like, because you saw the rabbit in the video being surrounded by the witches and like getting them to eat and stuff like that, and I will not be fooled. I'm wondering if the witches are kind of trying to encourage people to get sort of like drunk in the that sort of like darkness and the wine and everything like that. Or maybe the love is like a good thing. Maybe we want the witches to sort of set us straight on the right direction, and we're kind of encouraging people to get lost and move away from judging other people and to sort of get out of that shadow. Or maybe to accept it and just drink and sort of be hedonic anyways. I'm not completely sure, but that's my best guess at it. Bearing in mind that, I think that the way that we sung was tremendous. I thought that the kind of laissez-faire, very calm, kind of innocent sort of wording and phrasing of it, the effort with the emotionality of it performatively by the singer was great. We had some really wonderful sort of like vocal melodies that did manage to niche quite well with the incredibly complicated, at times, backing harmonies and like other instrumental sections there, as well as the rhythms that were going on with like the bass and the drum parts, which would occasionally call and respond, that would occasionally be sort of together in unison. It's tremendous. Like, there's way more to talk about with the instrumental performance than I've got time for in this conclusion. I don't want to sort of like have a 20-minute long conclusion, but I would talk about the main parts. But the singing anyways was wonderful. We showed a really clear understanding of vocal technique, really confident in our head and chest voice though. We stayed within a specific sort of range of like an octave maybe or two. I don't think we needed more than that. When you've got so much happening in the entire frequency spectrum, you kind of want the vocals to be in a sort of similar place, because you've already got enough diversity there within the composition. So I think it was a smart move to keep things relatively simple, especially so that it was more familiar when we came through the stanza for the second time. I think that the way we sang with this almost kind of a melancholy to it did kind of suit the mood of the vocals from what I can tell, and so I think there's a connection between the two that's quite satisfying, and like it's reasonable. The track at 3:59, it's got so much in it. There is so much in it for quite a sense of minimalism with the amount of exposition put in through the lyrics. we have a track which predominantly situates around the drums, the guitar, and the bass. It's more sort of like focused around having 2 times through the sort of main stanza thing, the William Shakespeare poetry bit. You have a situation where you have like just again the rest of the bass guitar and drum parts coming together, and like they aren't all the time. It's better just, I suppose, to sort of like keep it relatively to the point by talking about what the instruments individually are doing. I think part of the drums I really appreciated here is that they did keep a sense of like togetherness with the time signature, even though some of the phrasings of the different sort of cymbal patterns there with some of the 16ths kind of crazy kind of little roll bits as well, with the sort of frenetic, unpredictable tom fills going across the kit, not necessarily wanting to commit to a specific sort of traditional contemporary accent with the groove there. We had such range there, and it was really creative. But I think if you didn't have the drums there, the guitar and bass would have just sounded a little bit random, to be frank. I think that you had just enough to kind of bind things, whilst also allowing an incredible amount of room for everything else to move around. The proficiency across the drum kit in general is phenomenal. They're a really wonderful drummer, and I think it's some of the most unique drumming I've heard in quite a while. And I love the proggy elements we had there with the, again, not necessarily just sticking to traditional sort of like cymbal grooves or like tom fills at the end there. We weren't afraid to kind of switch things up, have a lot of dynamic range for the hits, things with the same loudness all the time. And it was very full-bodied. The bass, with some of the slap parts, some of the tappy parts at the beginning, some of the root notes sort of triad work there, almost soloist sections as well. It was almost as much of a lead instrument as the guitar, even the vocal parts. Honestly, I feel as if the guitar and bass were more leadish than the vocals because of how the vocals were sung in such a way that was kind of so like reasonably and understandably safe. It was so wild to me how much the bassist managed to fit in there, especially with some of the thumping and slap elements there. It was never too much. The way it sounded was great. The actual bass tone was fantastic. There was clarity of the notes not only in the lower range but in the mids as well that allowed us to have a presence in the mix, primarily because again the guitars were not all the time. So the bass often had to kind of fill a void where either the drums weren't or the guitars weren't. And it managed to do that succulently. It continued the chord progressions that were established, whilst providing a sense of its own voicing, and almost sounded like a safe harbor in amongst what was happening with the drums at times and the guitars, and also those kind of noisy kind of influences, those builds and like the sides there, like the violin to guitar parts, that kind of stuff, you know? But yeah, wonderful understanding music theory and composition there. It's very complicated to talk about, but yeah, the technique work was on fire, and it had a great sense of unison with the drums when it needed to, and otherwise it answered to it. The guitaring was incredible. There was some lovely sort of funky 7th chords there, some extensions there. We typically stayed away from traditional major and minor chords there. I think we were trying to be more explorative with the extended harmonies. We even had some sort of chromatics or accidentals. I don't think we necessarily had key changes. We might have had parallel minors in the extensions, but like outside of that, it was not only the fact that it was more sort of either arpeggiated chords or it was like frenetic kind of bar chord strumming. We had also the thing where we kind of violined the guitar parts for the volume going up slowly, like that kind of stuff, but it was only on one side or the other. And it was incredible, like again with the bass as well, how much we could go quiet and then sort of like build it up over time. I should also note, just while I remember, that the work done with that tempo shift at like the 2/3 mark or whatever it was absolutely sensational. I adore the effort put into making that as smooth as possible. I think it was wonderful. It sounded like a live performance. I don't think they could have possibly improved upon that, honestly. Like it was close to a 10 for me, at least a 9 out of 10 with the performance there, 9.5. There was just a wonderful dexterity there. I think if I'd seen them do it live and they could pull it off that well, it'd be a 10. The theme? I don't know, man. Like, I want to sort of say that the lack of wanting to stick to sort of more sort of like safe compositional elements sort of infers that things are not as they seem. They seem a bit mysterious with the use of chords that we had there, the unwillingness to stick to like specific root notes there, the wild changes, different percussive grooves, the vocals kind of again being like a safe place and amongst all the chaos outside of it. But it was never too loud. It was never too like intense. There weren't any uncomfortable parts aside from those rises on the side, those noisy rises that we had on the sides of the stereo field. I think they were sort of meant to sound like things were warping or twisting or something like that. So I think maybe we're having a spell cast on us or something like that. And then we turned into like a rabbit in the second half of the video, and I think there was William Shakespeare in there and he would not be fooled. I'm not sure. But it's really wonderful. And I think that it's nice to have that extra context of the video, even if I still don't necessarily know what's going on. I'm undecided on the theme. I think the theme sounds unsure of itself. I think that this may contrast with the lyrics, I'm not quite sure, but either way, I can kind of understand the uncertainty there, or like the melancholy nature of the lack of committing to a specific intensive mood there kind of sticks to lyrics. I think that overall, there's not a note out of place. It's a fantastic performance and an interesting sort of idea. The studio recording, mixing and mastering was wonderful. I'm really happy with the way that things were performed and produced and put across. The vocals sounded nice and clear in the mix. So did the different guitar parts, whether they're on the center or on the sides, or like they were building up with automation, or like actual guitar tone work there. The clarity of the tones there with the different parts was night and neat too. There were no weird resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum. That goes for the bass and the drums as well. The drums were nice and wide in the stereo field there. You could hear the different toms and snares and kicks and cymbals all around the place. It was very easy to follow. Again, with the side parts of the kind of the builds there, like filling the frequency stereo field to the wide parts. It was very, the music surrounded you. There was incredible dynamic range. It makes me very, very, very happy. It just sounded alive. It's so vivacious, even though I'm not necessarily sure whether it was necessarily celebrating. Well, it was celebrating life, I suppose. So it was nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression and limiting was handled, and effectively this is my review of this track from an act named ElephantGym, titled Witches, and I had a fantastic time with it. I think it's incredible work on behalf of the band. Fantastic first impression. And, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show us some love via the various social medias and the YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SC Patrons video. Spiderhands out.